Your hand stays still longer than it should. Not because you can't move, but because it doesn't feel right yet. And in that small delay, consistency starts to fracture. This is where discipline is enforced, not negotiated. The body isn't broken. It's just not aligned with the version you expect. Slight tension in the shoulders. Movement not as sharp as yesterday. The environment is ordinary, people passing, glancing, not understanding why you hesitate over something so small. So the mind steps in quietly, not now. Do it properly later. That is where perfection begins its damage. Not in failure, but in the refusal to act unless the conditions match an internal standard. You wait for clean execution, for the right rhythm, for the body to feel correct. And each time you wait, the system weakens. Consistency doesn't collapse loudly. It erodes in these silent pauses, where action is postponed, not rejected, the delay that feels justified. The pause doesn't look like failure. It looks controlled. Your grip tightens slightly, then loosens. The movement is delayed by a second, maybe two. Nothing dramatic. No collapse. Just a small recalibration while the body waits for the right feeling to return. That's where the fracture continues. The mind doesn't say stop. It says adjust. Not sharp enough. Not clean enough. Not today. The shoulders carry a dull weight, not pain that forces you down, just enough resistance to make the action feel incomplete. You shift your stance. You check the rhythm again. Around you, people move without noticing the gap you're stuck inside. To them, nothing is happening. To you, everything is paused. And the justification feels precise. If I do it like this, it won't count. So you wait. This is not laziness. That's why it survives. It hides behind standards. The body could move. The action is available. But you've attached a condition to it, an invisible threshold that must be met before execution is allowed. And because that threshold feels reasonable, the delay doesn't register as damage. But the system doesn't measure intent. It measures repetition. Every second you hold back reinforces a pattern. Action is conditional. The first time, it feels like discipline. You're refusing to do it poorly. The second time, it feels consistent, you're maintaining your standard. By the third time, it becomes automatic. If it's not right, it doesn't happen. Now the system is no longer built on execution. It's built on approval. Your body waits for permission from a standard that keeps shifting. The environment stays the same. People pass by. Someone glances briefly, then looks away. There's no recognition of the internal negotiation happening in that stillness. No one sees the exact moment where movement should have started, but didn't. That's how consistency dies in public without anyone noticing. You adjust again. Roll the shoulders. Reset the position. Still not right. So the delay extends. And each extension feels harmless because it's quiet. No missed day. No visible failure. Just a series of almost actions that never fully begin. This is where perfection becomes destructive, not by stopping you outright, but by fragmenting your execution into conditions that rarely align. You tell yourself you'll do it properly later. Later becomes the place where perfect conditions exist. But the system doesn't operate in later. It operates in now. And right now, the body is learning something else entirely. Do not move until it feels correct. That instruction repeats more reliably than any routine you intended to build. The dull resistance in your limbs doesn't disappear. It becomes familiar, normal, expected. And instead of moving through it, you begin to negotiate around it. Give it a minute. Let it settle. Start when it's right. Each of these sounds controlled, measured, responsible. But none of them produce repetition. They produce delay. And delay, repeated enough times, becomes identity. Not someone who failed. Someone who waits. The pattern that looks like discipline. And once waiting becomes familiar, it no longer feels like hesitation. It feels like control. Your body stays in place, not frozen, just paused long enough to evaluate again. The same dull pressure sits in your joints, unchanged, predictable. It's not getting worse, but it's not clearing either. Still, you treat it like a signal. Not ready yet. You shift your weight. Test the movement halfway. Stop again. To anyone watching, it looks intentional. Like precision. Like someone taking their time to get it right. A passerby slows for a second, notices your stillness, then continues. There's no interruption. No one questions it. That's what makes this pattern stable. It blends in. The delay disguises itself as discipline because it avoids obvious failure. You're not skipping. You're not quitting. You're still here, still preparing, still engaged. But nothing is being repeated. And repetition is the only thing that builds consistency. The mind continues its quiet calibration. If you start like this, it won't reflect your real level. If the form is off, it's better to reset. If today isn't clean, it doesn't count. Each thought lands with precision. No panic. No emotion. Just small, reasonable corrections that slowly push action further away. This is where perfection sharpens its edge. It removes urgency. Because the standard becomes the focus, not the act itself. You are no longer trying to execute, you are trying to validate the execution before it happens. So the body waits again. The shoulders remain slightly tense, not collapsing, just held in a position that suggests readiness without movement. The breath stays steady, but shallow enough to keep everything contained. Nothing breaks. Nothing releases. Just control without output. The longer this continues, the more the system rewrites itself. Action is no longer the default response. Evaluation is. You begin to trust the delay. It feels responsible. It feels like you're protecting the quality of your effort. You believe you're maintaining a standard, but in reality, you're training a filter that blocks repetition unless conditions align. And conditions rarely align. Because the body will always carry some resistance. Some imperfection. Some imbalance. That never disappears. But now, instead of moving through that constant resistance, you've made it a gate. No clean feeling, no action. No action, no repetition. No repetition, no consistency. The system collapses quietly. And what replaces it is a loop that looks structured from the outside, but produces nothing. You arrive. You prepare. You evaluate. You delay. You reset. Again. And again. Each cycle strengthens the same internal instruction. Only act when it's right. But right keeps shifting. So the action keeps disappearing. The environment doesn't change. People pass. Someone lingers for a second longer this time, watching your repeated resets without understanding them. There's no recognition of the internal standard you're enforcing. To them, it's just hesitation dressed as control. To you, it's discipline. That misinterpretation is what locks the pattern in place. Because you don't correct it. You protect it. And every time you protect it, the gap between intention and execution grows wider, while still feeling justified. The internal war that never starts. That widening gap doesn't trigger urgency. It stabilizes. Because nothing has visibly broken yet. You're still showing up. Still placing yourself in position. The same public space, the same routine window, the same silent preparation. From the outside, the pattern looks intact. There is no absence, only delay. And that delay becomes the new normal. Your body carries the same dull resistance as before. Not sharp enough to stop you. Not heavy enough to excuse quitting. Just a constant, low-level friction in the joints, in the shoulders, in the timing of movement. It's familiar now. Expected. You step into position again. Pause. Check. Reset. The sequence repeats so cleanly it almost feels like structure. But there is no execution inside it. The internal conflict isn't loud. There's no argument, no emotional spike. Just a quiet line of reasoning that repeats with small variations. If you start like this, you reinforce bad form. If you rush it, you build the wrong habit. If it's not aligned, it's wasted effort. Each statement sounds disciplined, controlled, logical. But none of them produce action. That's where the internal war fails to begin. Because war requires opposition. Here, there is only agreement. The body resists slightly. The mind validates the resistance. The delay follows naturally. No tension spike. No break in pattern. Just smooth continuation of an action. And because the reasoning feels correct, you don't interrupt it. You refine it. The next time, the threshold becomes even tighter. Not just not right but not optimal. Not just off but inefficient. The standard sharpens while the output disappears. And the system adapts accordingly. You no longer expect yourself to move through resistance. You expect resistance to clear before movement. That reversal is subtle, but permanent. Now the body is no longer trained to act under imperfect conditions. It is trained to wait for improvement. But improvement never announces itself. So the waiting extends. Again, someone passes by. A brief glance, longer this time. Not because of what you're doing, but because of what you're not doing. The stillness repeats too often. The resets look rehearsed but unfinished. They don't understand it. And you don't correct it. Because internally, it still feels like discipline. You are maintaining a standard. But the standard has detached from repetition. It has become a filter that blocks action unless conditions align. And conditions remain slightly off. Always. So the internal war dissolves into something quieter. Not struggle. Agreement. The body signals resistance. The mind justifies delay. The system reinforces waiting. And because there is no visible collapse, there is no trigger to break the pattern. You stand there again. Same posture. Same tension. Same unfinished start. And the most dangerous part is this. It feels stable, the structure that removes permission. That stability is the problem. Because nothing inside it forces change. The body stays within the same narrow range, slight tension, slight resistance, controlled breath that never fully commits to movement. You adjust again, but the adjustment leads nowhere. It loops back into the same pause. And the pause no longer feels optional. It feels required. Because without it, you would act imperfectly. So the system begins to organize itself around avoidance. Not obvious avoidance, refined avoidance. You arrive at the same time. Stand in the same place. Enter the same preparation. Everything looks consistent. But the core function, execution, remains conditional. That's where structure has to intervene. Not to improve performance. To remove permission. The time is fixed. Not when it feels right. Not when the body aligns. At this time, the action begins. No evaluation window. No adjustment phase. No recalibration. The body resists in the same way, shoulders slightly tight, movement not fully fluid, timing slightly off. None of that changes. But the system no longer waits for it to change. It moves through it. That shift is mechanical, not emotional. There is no decision made in the moment. Because the decision has already been removed. You don't ask whether it counts. You don't check if it's clean. You don't delay for correction. You start. The first movement feels the same as before, imperfect, slightly off, carrying that dull resistance you've been avoiding. But now it happens anyway. And that breaks the previous pattern. The body learns something new. Action does not require readiness. It requires timing. The environment doesn't react. People still pass by. Someone glances again, this time noticing the movement instead of the pause. There's no understanding behind it, just observation. But that's enough. Because now something is actually repeating. The system no longer revolves around how it feels. It revolves around when it happens. That distinction removes the delay justification entirely. There is no space left for "not today," "not like this," "not until it's right." Those options disappear because the structure does not include them. The body still carries resistance. The form is still not perfect. But the action is no longer blocked. And once the first repetition happens under imperfect conditions, the standard begins to shift, not toward perfection, but toward continuity. The pause tries to return. You feel it in the next cycle, the urge to adjust again, to correct before starting. The same internal line begins to form. This one should be cleaner. But the system interrupts it. Not with force. With sequence. Time arrives. Action begins. Again, repetition without approval. Again means without adjustment. The next cycle begins before the previous one feels resolved. The body hasn't corrected itself. The shoulders still carry that same quiet tension. The movement is still slightly off, timing not exact, alignment not perfect. But the system does not pause to fix it. It continues. That continuation is where the pressure shifts. Because now the delay has nowhere to attach. The familiar thought tries to surface. Reset this one. Make it cleaner. Do it properly. But the sequence does not allow space for those instructions to expand. The next repetition begins before the evaluation can fully form. Action cuts through it. Not forcefully. Just consistently. The body moves again under the same imperfect conditions. The dull resistance doesn't disappear, it becomes part of the rhythm. Something carried, not solved. And that changes the relationship with it. Before, resistance was a signal to stop. Now, it becomes a condition to move within. The environment reflects this shift without understanding it. Someone nearby slows down slightly, watching the repetition. Not analyzing, just noticing that something is happening without interruption now. No more resets. No more extended stillness. Just movement repeating at a fixed point in time. It doesn't look impressive. It looks ordinary. And that is exactly what makes it stable. Because perfection requires attention. Consistency requires indifference. The body no longer asks for permission to perform well. It executes because the time has arrived. Each repetition carries small imperfections, slight imbalance, minor inefficiency, incomplete sharpness. But those imperfections are no longer barriers. They are included. The system absorbs them instead of rejecting them. And because of that, the chain holds. The internal pattern begins to shift under pressure. The same delay justification tries to return in fragments. This could be better. You're reinforcing flaws. This isn't your best. But those thoughts arrive too late. The action has already started. That timing difference is small, but decisive. It removes the ability of the mind to intercept the body before movement begins. And once that interception fails repeatedly, the justification weakens. Not because it is disproven, but because it is no longer effective. The body keeps moving. again, and again. Each repetition reinforces a new instruction. Action happens at this time, regardless of condition. The resistance becomes background noise. Still present, still felt, but no longer directing behavior. And the most important shift is this. You stop trying to protect the quality of each individual action. You protect the continuity of all actions. That replacement is quiet. But it changes everything, the system that pre-decides failure. That protection starts to harden. Not as motivation, but as restriction. Because once continuity becomes the priority, you can no longer afford open decisions inside the moment. The body still carries the same resistance, tightness in the shoulders, slight delay in coordination, movement that doesn't fully match intention. None of that improves immediately. But now, it also doesn't matter. Because the system has already answered the question that used to stop you. If it's not right, should I still do it? That question no longer exists. It has been replaced. At this time action happens. No condition attached. The next cycle begins, and the same internal pattern attempts to surface again. A quieter version now, more compressed, almost automatic. This one should be adjusted. This repetition isn't efficient. This could be corrected before continuing. But the structure doesn't allow space for correction before execution. Correction happens after. Or not at all. That distinction removes the final entry point for delay. You are no longer deciding whether to act. You are only moving through a sequence that has already been defined. And because of that, even imperfect repetitions accumulate. The body adapts to that accumulation. The same dull resistance is still present, but it begins to lose authority. It no longer interrupts the flow. It gets carried through the sequence, not negotiated around. The environment continues to reflect this shift in a subtle way. Someone nearby watches longer now. Not because of performance, but because of consistency. The absence of hesitation becomes visible, even if the reason behind it isn't understood. There is no pause to explain. No visible correction phase. Just continuation. That lack of visible adjustment creates friction. From the outside, it may look careless, unrefined, repetitive without improvement. But the system is not optimizing appearance. It is eliminating interruption. Because interruption is where collapse used to begin. And now, interruption has been pre-removed. Even failure has been pre-decided. If the repetition is imperfect, it still counts. If the movement is off, it still happens. If the body resists, it still moves. There is no branch in the system where action stops. Only variation in how clean the action feels. And that forces a different kind of adaptation. The body begins to adjust inside movement, not before it. Small corrections happen mid-sequence. Timing tightens slightly. Alignment improves gradually, not because you waited for it, but because you continued through it. Perfection is no longer the entry requirement. It becomes a side effect. And without the ability to delay, the internal justification pattern weakens further. Not by argument. By irrelevance. Because even when it appears, action has already started, the identity that stops waiting. Action starting before thought doesn't feel dramatic. It feels quiet. The same environment. Same time. Same body carrying that familiar, low-level resistance. The shoulders still not fully loose. The movement still not perfectly aligned. Nothing about the surface has transformed into something impressive. But something underneath has locked. There is no visible pause anymore. The moment arrives, and the body moves. Not because it feels right. Not because it has been evaluated. Because there is no longer a version of you that waits. that absence becomes noticeable. Not to others in any clear way, but in the removal of those small gaps that used to exist. No more standing still while adjusting. No more micro delays disguised as preparation. The sequence begins exactly when it is supposed to. Every time. The internal pattern tries to surface again, but it no longer carries authority. The same fragments appear, thinner now. This could be better. This isn't clean. You should refine this. But those are no longer instructions. They are observations. They don't interrupt. They follow. Because the body has already moved. And that order cannot be reversed anymore. The resistance is still there. It never left. The dull pressure, the slight imbalance, the imperfect rhythm, it all continues to exist. But it has been repositioned. It is no longer something you respond to. It is something that travels with you. That shift removes the final trace of perfection from the system. Because perfection requires attention before action. And that attention is gone. The system doesn't look for alignment. It produces repetition. And inside that repetition, alignment slowly emerges on its own. Without delay. Without negotiation. Without permission. The environment reflects this in small, almost unnoticeable ways. Someone nearby watches again, not because something is impressive, but because something is consistent. The absence of hesitation is more visible than any display of skill. They don't understand it. They only see that it keeps happening. That is the signal. Not quality. Not intensity. Predictability. The body begins to move on schedule, regardless of internal state. Resistance, fatigue, imperfection, all of it becomes irrelevant to the decision to act. Because there is no decision left. And when decision disappears, so does the space where perfection used to interfere. What remains is simpler. The time arrives. The action happens. No delay. No adjustment. No waiting, the end of the standard. No delay means no negotiation point. The body still feels the same, slight tension, imperfect timing, resistance that never fully clears. None of that has been solved. None of it needed to be. Because the system no longer depends on it. Perfection used to sit at the entrance. It decided whether the action was allowed. It filtered every movement through a shifting standard that could always find something wrong. Now it has no position. Because the entrance is gone. Time arrives, and the body moves. Not because it's ready. Because it's required. That removal is final. There is no moment left where you stand still and evaluate whether it's good enough. No quiet recalibration before starting. No silent agreement with delay justification. The sequence begins. Every time. And inside that repetition, something replaces perfection completely. Not improvement. Not motivation. Stability. The action happens whether it feels correct or not. The resistance is carried, not cleared. The imperfections are included, not filtered. And because of that, the chain does not break. Consistency no longer depends on how well you perform. It depends on whether you start. And starting is no longer a decision. It is the structure. This is where perfection loses all influence. Not because it was defeated, but because it was removed from the system. This is no longer something you try to do well. It is something you do. Every time.